Canada stuns allies with a $20 billion submarine pact with South Korea, reshaping Pacific power.
This historic partnership signals Canada's new independent course in defense, trade, and advanced technology.
Breaking tonight, Washington just watched its closest ally sign away $20 billion to Seoul. And they never saw it coming. Canada didn't ask permission. They didn't wait for approval. Prime Minister Mark Carney landed in South Korea, walked into Gyeongju, and signed what analysts are calling the most significant defense realignment in Canadian history. A submarine pact with Seoul that changes everything about how Ottawa operates in the world. This isn't about upgrading naval hardware. This is about Canada declaring independence from American defense contractors, American strategic assumptions, and American expectations of loyalty. For the first time in generations, Canada is buying its military future from Asia, and the Pentagon is scrambling to understand what just happened. You need to hear how this unfolded, because it reveals exactly where global power is shifting right now. Gyeongju, South Korea, November 8th, 2025. Mark Carney arrives for his first official visit to the Republic of Korea. On paper, this looks routine. An APEC summit appearance, some bilateral meetings, the usual diplomatic choreography. But behind closed doors, Carney came with a mandate that shocked even his own cabinet. He's ready to finalize the largest defense procurement in Canadian history, and he's choosing Seoul over Washington's preferred contractors. The meeting with President Lee Jung wasn't ceremonial. It was strategic. Together, they announced the Canada-Korea Security and Defense Cooperation Partnership, the first agreement of its kind for Canada in the Indo-Pacific. Not with Japan, not with Australia, with South Korea, the manufacturing powerhouse that's been quietly building some of the most advanced submarines on the planet. Here's what that partnership actually means. Intelligence sharing at classification levels Canada has never extended to Asian allies. Joint defense production, meaning Korean shipyards working directly with Canadian naval engineers. And technology integration that positions Seoul as a permanent partner in Canada's military planning. This isn't a transaction, it's an alliance. The centerpiece? Hanwha Ocean Shipyard just moved to the front of the line for Canada's next-generation submarine program. Yes, Germany's ThyssenKrupp Marine Systems is still technically in the running, but here's what matters. Carney flew to Gyeongju Island, toured Hanwha's shipyard, where they build these submarines, and the body language told the whole story. This isn't a competition anymore. Ottawa just sent the clearest signal possible about where this contract is heading. $20 billion doesn't just buy submarines. It buys decades of collaboration, shared training protocols, technological interoperability, and strategic alignment. If this deal closes, and every indication suggests it will, Canada is locking itself into a defense partnership with Asia's most dynamic military innovator. And Washington, which has spent 70 years assuming Canada's procurement would flow through American contractors, just lost its guaranteed position. Dear viewers, this is the part where we need to understand what's really happening beneath the surface. Because this submarine deal isn't actually about submarines. It's about Carney executing a complete reset of how Canada operates globally. And he's doing it while American attention is divided across a dozen crises. For generations, Canada's defense posture was simple. Buy American equipment, integrate with American systems, follow American strategic priorities. That arrangement worked when Washington was the undisputed center of Western power. But that world is disappearing. American politics have become unpredictable. American industrial capacity is stretched. And American commitment to multilateral frameworks is questioned constantly. Mark Carney sees that instability, and he's moving fast to build alternatives. The Korea partnership gives Canada options it's never had before. If American contractors price gouge or delay delivery, Ottawa can turn to Seoul. If Washington pressures Canada on strategic decisions, Ottawa can demonstrate it has other capable partners. This is what independence looks like in modern geopolitics. Not dramatic breaks, but quiet diversification. The timing tells you everything. Trump is threatening tariffs on Canadian goods while demanding NATO spending increases. American defense companies are backing up orders for years because of Ukraine commitments. European allies are scrambling to secure their own supply chains. And Carney is watching all of it, calculating that Canada needs to act now while Seoul is eager to break into Western markets. South Korea gets something crucial from this deal too. Credibility. Seoul has been trying to position itself as a major global defense exporter, competing directly with American, German, and French manufacturers. Landing Canada, a G7 nation with one of the world's longest coastlines and critical Arctic responsibilities, validates Korean capabilities in a way no marketing campaign ever could. If Hanwha's submarines are good enough for Canada's Navy, they're good enough for anyone. The industrial implications extend far beyond naval vessels. Carney announced that Korean technology could be transferred to Canadian shipyards, creating thousands of jobs and potentially transforming Canada from a defense buyer into a defense exporter. Imagine Canadian yards building submarines for allied nations using Korean designs and Canadian resources. That's the vision Carney is selling, and it positions Canada as a bridge between Asian innovation and Western markets. When Carney toured the Hanwha Ocean facility on Gyeonggi Island, reporters traveling with him described the moment as almost symbolic. Massive steel submarines under construction, silent and powerful, representing a new era of Canadian autonomy. Workers lined the docks as the Canadian Prime Minister walked past vessels that might soon carry the Maple Leaf into the Arctic, the Atlantic, the Pacific. It was cinematic because it was historic. Canada stepping into a role it's never played before, an independent, strategic actor with options beyond Washington. But Carney's ambitions don't stop at submarines. During the same visit, he outlined plans for a Team Canada trade mission to Seoul in 2026, targeting energy, technology, and innovation partnerships. Korea is already Canada's 7th largest trading partner, moving nearly $25 billion in goods annually. Carney's stated goal? Double non-US exports within a decade, and he's using defense partnerships as the foundation to unlock broader economic cooperation. At the APEC summit, Carney spoke directly to Korean investors about Canada's leadership in artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and clean energy. Seoul is a global powerhouse in all 3 sectors. The message was obvious. Defense cooperation opens doors to technological collaboration that reshapes both economies. Canadian research capacity plus Korean manufacturing scale equals a partnership that could challenge American and Chinese dominance in emerging technologies. They also announced negotiations for a general security of military information agreement. That's the legal framework that lets governments share classified intel without restrictions. What does that actually mean? Canadian and Korean defense planners can now work on projects together that were completely off limits 6 months ago. Cybersecurity projects, AI-driven defense systems, satellite intelligence networks, next-generation propulsion tech. Everything shifts from competition to collaboration. Everyone believed Canada would remain locked into American defense partnerships indefinitely. Analysts assumed Ottawa couldn't risk alienating Washington. Defense contractors expected business as usual. They were all utterly incorrect. Translation: Carney just told Washington that Canadian sovereignty is non-negotiable. And what happened next? The country that invested in Asian partnerships while others hesitated reveals exactly why Canadian influence is expanding, while American assumptions collapse. Back in Ottawa, reactions split predictably along political lines. Supporters call Carney visionary, finally giving Canada strategic autonomy in a multipolar world. Critics warn about straining relationships with Washington and abandoning traditional allies. But Carney's response has been consistent. Canada isn't choosing between partners, it's expanding its options. Though the practical effect is unmistakable. American contractors just learned they no longer have guaranteed access to Canadian procurement. The Pentagon hasn't issued public statements, but defense industry sources report confusion and frustration. How did Canada move this far this fast without Washington knowing? The answer reveals something important about Carney's operating style. He doesn't telegraph his moves. He doesn't seek consensus. He identifies strategic opportunities and acts before opposition can organize. By the time Washington understood what was happening in Seoul, agreements were already signed. This pattern extends beyond defense. Carney met with major Korean conglomerates, Hyundai, SK Group, Samsung, outlining Canadian opportunities in clean hydrogen, critical minerals, and advanced manufacturing. These companies are now exploring investments in Canadian projects aimed at securing rare earth supply chains and decarbonizing heavy industry. Each handshake, each memorandum of understanding builds a web of relationships that make Canada less dependent on American markets and American goodwill. The submarine deal also carries a pointed message about efficiency. Canada has struggled for decades with procurement delays and cost overruns on military projects. Korean shipyards are known for delivering on time and on budget. If Hanwha builds Canada's submarines faster and cheaper than Western competitors, It embarrasses the entire traditional defense industry and proves that Canada can get better value by looking beyond established suppliers. In less than 1 week, Mark Carney transformed a diplomatic visit into a turning point for Canadian foreign policy. He positioned Canada at the intersection of Asian innovation and Western security needs. He demonstrated that middle powers can play offense in great power competition. And he did it all while maintaining plausible deniability about challenging American dominance. The $20 billion submarine pact isn't just a deal. It's a signal. To Washington, it says Canadian loyalty can no longer be assumed. To Seoul, it says Asian manufacturers can compete for Western defense contracts if they offer superior value. To the world, it says Canada is charting its own course. Beneath the waves, beyond old alliances, and deep into a new Pacific century where power flows through technology partnerships, not historical relationships. This is what independence looks like in 2025. Not dramatic declarations, but calculated moves that shift strategic realities before anyone realizes what's changing. Mark Carney just gave Canada options it's never had. Washington is only now starting to realize what happened while they were busy with everything else. Here's what you need to understand. Global power doesn't shift with announcements. It shifts in quiet moments like this, when leaders stop waiting for permission and start building what comes next. That's what Carney just did. If you want to catch these shifts before everyone else figures them out, before they're dissected on every news channel a week later, that's exactly what this channel does. We break down the moves that actually matter. So hit subscribe because there's a lot more coming. And if this changed how you see what Canada's doing right now, let me know with a like.